Hi, y'all. I'm Allison. Today we are here to travel on back to the Regency era with some Jane Austen and some fan fiction. Also, I will be kicking off a new playlist with this one. So we will have a section just for Regency era Jane Austen based books because I have a ton of those in my library. I think I looked before, I have like 150 different Jane Austen variations. So I might be a little bit of an addict. Just to give you a little heads up, these reviews and little talks will be completely spoiler free. If for some reason I do feel it's crucial to share a plot point, I will mark it as a spoiler and also have it down in the chapter breaks below so you can skip over it. I don't want to ruin anyone's books. When I'm reading, I'm primarily looking for how much should I enjoy it, and is this a book I would want to revisit and reread, because that's my ultimate goal, to only have the ones I love on my shelf. So I'll be looking at writing style, pacing, characters, world building, that kind of things, not necessarily a literary critique. All right, all of that aside, let's talk Jane Austen and the fan fiction. We're going to start out with Jane Austen herself, and this is Emma, which was her fourth book, I believe. Had this gorgeous edition, illustrated by Marjolein Bastin. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And I think she's known for doing like calendars and things like that. But it is just full of these gorgeous illustrations throughout the book. Here's some examples. There's some ephemera. So this one gives you an illustration of all of the different homes of the key players, which it was really nice to be able to compare their dwellings to each other. But wait, there's more. They have all these little recipes from back then, which these were quite eye-opening. It's me going, what? They weren't very big on measurement amounts and specifics. So, but anyway, it was just gorgeous. Honestly, I think reading this edition actually changed my experience with this book. This was not by any means the first time I've read Emma. But she's always been one of my least favorite characters. And from my understanding, Jane Austen herself did not particularly enjoy Emma. She did not like this character at all. Of course, like most of Jane Austen's work, she is taking a stab at the social norms of the time and pointing out how ridiculous it really kind of was. You know, the hoops that they had to jump through and what women had to conform with and put up with. So Emma herself is from the most notable family in the area, so everybody has to pretty much defer to her wishes, and they all idolize her and worship her, and Emma can do no wrong. Except Emma, she has a very self-inflated sense of worth, of course, from everybody bowing down to her all the time. Not literally, but, giving way to her. That would definitely boost a young girl's self-confidence. She also considers herself an expert matchmaker, and the whole story is pretty much based on her misguided attempts to bring couples together. So the snobbery of Emma, it gets a little hard to take. You just want to kind of knock her down a peg, but she does have some redeeming qualities. She really cares for her father, who is constantly worried about everybody getting sick. He's got his whole, there's a whole cast of quirky characters in this. I will say, during this reread, I took it really slow, and I think that was in part due to the large size of the pages. The chapters were only a page or two long, and with the illustrations, I read this at a very slow rate, which is not my normal. And as a result, I think I enjoyed the side stories much more than I have in the past. I think I gave them their due. Mrs. Elton, I found the humor in her that I had overlooked before. Before, she just annoyed me to no end, and this time I couldn't help but, laugh behind her back as everybody else was doing. and I enjoyed the storyline of Jane Fairfax more. So this edition actually kind of heightened my enjoyment of the original story. So yeah, if you haven't read Emma, you should just go in knowing that you're supposed to be disgusted with the main character. She does grow as the story goes on, and she learns from her follies and her mistakes, and she becomes a little less grating and irritating. But the point is, you're supposed to want to just whop her upside the head and go, really get over yourself. So awesome edition. I love this. So moving straight from Emma, I also read a retelling, and this is by Amanda Grange, and it's Mr. Knightley's Diary, and this tells the same story, but from Mr. Knightley's point of view, who is our main love interest. So the key thing, one of the key things I always look for in a retelling of any Jane Austen's works is how true to the original characters that the author writes. So if they are acting completely out of what I would expect from the wonderful characters that Jane Austen has given us, then more often than not, I will DNF that book so fast it's unbelievable. And I'm not one to DNF. I will slug through almost no matter what, except when they mess with my Jane Austen characters. Amanda Grange does a really good job of keeping true to the originals. She doesn't try to mimic or copy Jane Austen's writing style, which I think is to her credit, because there's a reason Jane Austen is still so prevalent today, and her writing is just incredible. So Amanda Grange doesn't attempt to do that herself, but she very much keeps the mannerisms and their speaking and the dialogue in lines with the time, the Regency era. So you don't feel like you're being thrust out of that with them talking in common contemporary language or anything. So I really do appreciate that. I read it before going back and rereading Emma. And initially I thought Mr. Knightley was being way too harsh on Emma, and that wouldn't fit and it wasn't right. And, his critiques of her kind of, mellowed a little bit. And looking back on Emma, as Emma herself was improving a little, Knightley's assessment of her kind of leveled off as well. He was the only one that attempted to keep her in check, to bring her down a peg or two to reality, that she wasn't all that. Another thing that I really enjoy about this book is that it's not just a complete rehash of Emma. It's not taking it scene by scene and telling you Knightley's side of it. So peppered throughout, there will be references to events that happened where Knightley wasn't present in the original, but you don't get the whole backstory to it. So it's kind of like these little hidden Easter eggs. You're like, I know what they're referring to there. I know that. Now, also, if you have not read Emma, or it's been a very long time, not knowing the original story will not hurt you. It's not like, well, you're like, what are they talking about? It's just these little Easter eggs that if you miss it, it won't detract from the main story. And I really like that. So I gave this one 4 stars, and I would recommend it if you like Emma and Jane Austen retellings. Amanda Grange does have retellings on all of the Jane Austen books, or at least the main 6. I don't think there was one for Lady Susan. So, all right, we've got one more to talk about. The Three Colonels, Jane Austen's Fighting Men by Jack Caldwell. I just finished this the other day, and it was a reread for me. And it was one that I remember really enjoying before. I've reread it quite a few times, but it's been a while. And I am glad to report that it held up to what I remember, and I thoroughly enjoyed it once again. This time we are taking characters from Pride and Prejudice and from Sense and Sensibility, and instead of doing a retelling, we are doing a continuation. And I love continuing Pride and Prejudice. That's my ultimate go-to. These characters are like family to me. I love them. And anytime I can read something that continues on in their world or expands on what's going on with them, I am there for it. And Jack Caldwell is one of my go-tos. I really enjoy his Pride and Prejudice retellings. So we've got the three colonels, which are going to be Colonel Brandon from Sense and Sensibility, Colonel Fitzwilliam, which is Darcy's cousin from Pride and Prejudice, and then we have a new character, Colonel John Buford. Along with those three main men, we have Anne de Bour from Pride and Prejudice, which is Darcy's cousin, Caroline Bingley, which is Charles Bingley's sister, and our last one was Marianne Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility. First and most important thing is, again, Jack Caldwell does not try to mimic Jane Austen's writing, but his characters stay very true to her originals, and the dialogue is very much in keeping with the times, so I enjoy that. And while I said that his characters stay true to the originals, that does not mean that they're stuck there. So we do see some pretty dramatic changes in some of them, but it's done in such a way that it works. We have a time jump. This one happens 3 years after about the end of Pride and Prejudice. So new friendships have formed, acquaintances have been made from other characters from other books. It's great to see how many come in. There's lots of cameos and lots of beloved characters that flow in and out of this story. So we've got some major character development going on, and it works because you actually find yourself, believe it or not, kind of starting to like Caroline Bingley. She loses some of her caustic attitudes, but not in a way that ruins her. She still can have that sharp bite when she needs it, but she has toned down, and it's very reasonable that she would have progressed to this after Darcy got married. And she forms a friendship that was kind of unexpected, but yet again, you could see where it would work. So I will give that to him. He does a really good job of balancing a lot of characters. So, and keeping them all straight. You don't get lost in the storyline. You have three main storylines going in this one, and I would say it predominantly focuses on Caroline and Anne. And Marianne's role is, while it's there, and she definitely is a part of it, her role in the story isn't quite as big as the other two. Towards the middle of the book, once, surprise, Napoleon leaves Elba and is no longer in exile, and now the men are called up to fight, the book kind of changes tone, and we go with them to war while getting some flashbacks of what's going on back in England at their homes with the women who are praying for them and hoping that they come back. So I do like the war side of it. It was good without being overly done. And it's, from what my understanding, it pretty much follows the Battle of Waterloo, the timeline. So again, if you're looking for something new and you want maybe a little bit grittier on a Pride and Prejudice continuation, then check out Jack Caldwell. I will let you know that there was like one or two tastefully done sex scenes. It's not over the top. And again, it might be a little cringeworthy at moments, but they were short and brief. And again, it fit in with the story, which I don't mind. I just don't like it when it takes over the whole story and you're like, is there a plot in between all of this? We've read this already 5 times. But that's not the case in this one. It actually, it's there for a purpose. Yeah, and for that reason, I gave this one 4.5. And you know what? While we're here talking about Jack Caldwell, let me see how well I can remember. I'm going to test my memory banks. We're also going to talk about Mr. Darcy Comes to Dinner. I love this one. If you want a humorous Pride and Prejudice retelling, this is a retelling, not a continuation or anything like that, then check out this book. I have it on my Nook, and pretty much Darcy comes to visit. He's in Longbourn, or he's in Hertfordshire. There we go. And he finds himself at Longbourn right around dinner time. The Bennets have a cat, Cassandra. The cat runs out, spooks the horse. Darcy gets thrown, and he breaks his leg. So they didn't have the medical convenience that we do now. So he gets a cast, and he is laid up. He has to stay on the Bennet couch for like a month or 6 weeks, or I don't remember exactly how long. But if you're a Pride and Prejudice fan, you know that they talk about how grumpy Darcy can be when trapped inside on a rainy Sunday. Now imagine Darcy trapped on the Bennet couch for weeks. You get some really good humor in this one. I love it. We've got Mr. Collins there, and Darcy is appalled by his behavior to Elizabeth Bennet. And in fact, he intervenes on her behalf. He becomes her champion. He's in a lot of pain. He drinks a little bit too much whiskey, and Darcy may or may not start singing sea shanties from the couch while the family is in the other room at dinner. So yeah, it's nice to see, Darcy in some uncomfortable situations, and to see, him with a kind of almost softer side of him, where his defenses are down a little bit at times, and he's trying to come to terms to the situation that he's in. And again, it's keeping in character with, I think Jane Austen would have gotten a kick out of it. I think she would have laughed at it. So there's a little bonus one for you if you want some humor and a lighthearted, quick Pride and Prejudice retelling. Mr. Darcy Comes to Dinner, Jack Caldwell. All right, that was the last of my little Regency romp for y'all. If you have read any of these and had a different opinion, or have a favorite scene that you want to talk about, then definitely comment down below. I would love to talk books with y'all. Be sure and give me a thumbs up to let YouTube know I might be onto something here, and subscribe if you haven't, and if you would like to see more. So until then, I will let y'all go and see you next time, I hope. Bye now.